Audio Jungle.
I think there are guys that absolutely will get drafted. It's just every year we have guys that you think will get drafted higher than they do. Other guys, I can't even remember the guy's name now, but Oklahoma State had had one player get drafted in a draft a few years ago, and it was like a transfer, like linebacker that, like, I was like, he was like our second best linebacker. How did that even happen? And I'm blanking on the name now, but I've got a list of guys here, and I want you to tell me, like, which guy intrigues you the most in terms of a potential steal or could be the potential contributor. From Oklahoma, I've got Trey Brown, Trey Norwood, Adrian Ely, and Ramondre Stevenson. From Oklahoma State, Chuba Hubbard, for Darius Williams, Amon Ababamiga, and Calvin Bundage. Now, do any of those names stand out to you as somebody that you think, oh, that guy's a pro football player?
So Ramondre Stevenson does, but not as a running back. I think he's going to be a very good special teamer, which is very important in the NFL. And again, I said this earlier, running backs, to me, very few of them actually matter. They can just be interchangeable. He'll probably have a moment or two as a running back in the league, just because seemingly every running back does. They have like 2 or 3 weeks where every fantasy person's like, oh my God, we got to get this guy.
He could be Jonas Gray.
Yeah, exactly. You never hear from him again, but I do think that he's going to stick as a special teams guy. And that's kind of where I am with everybody who you just mentioned. They're backups to slash special teamers. Chuba is an interesting thing. Like, what happened last year? 2 years ago, just absolutely incredible. I still don't really understand what happened last year. Like, he was in, he was out. When he was in, he didn't look effective a lot of the time, but then he would rip off a huge run.
I feel like if we knew, then Oklahoma State would have had a couple more wins under their belts. If we could have figured out what the hell happened, and his career was so bizarre because I liked him as a decent, backup whenever Justice Hill was there. I liked him as a decent, I just thought it was strange. I was like, oh, cool, we got this guy from Canada. Oh, and he runs track. Oh,
it's a lot of guys from Canada.
Yeah.
Strange little pipeline you got going there.
Oh my gosh. And that was what was so interesting, was between him, Amen, and then Neville Gallimore last year, the freaking pipeline from Alberta down to Oklahoma, just that normal thing. I'm looking at Ramondre, and back to Ramondre real quick. 6 foot 231. I feel like if this were 2005, he'd be perfect. He's a sledgehammer of a running back, and maybe it's the jersey number, maybe it's the hair, but when I watch him, I think of LeGarrette Blount. I see a lot of, just a guy that's going to run downhill and run you over and love contact. Probably a little more, I don't want to say more athletic, but maybe, I don't know. He's different, man. He's a guy that just in the middle of a game would just take over. And when, in that, I think it might've been Bedlam this past year, which I didn't get to watch a ton of, but I mean,
it was a weird game from what I remember.
What's that?
It was a weird game.
It was a weird game. Well, yeah, Spencer Rattler they're up like 21-0 really quick.
That's
and then,
right.
And
give
then
it all back.
In the second half, Oklahoma State was like, I think I even remember saying, like,
I think they got it within 3. I think it was 24-21 at one point. And then late in the first half, Oklahoma State has the ball and they're driving, and then they kick a cowardly punt.
Yeah,
that's what it was. They had like a 4th and 5
late
around.
Too. Well, they that was. Yeah, I do remember that being
somewhere in there is a cowardly punt. And I was like, all right, well, game over.
Yeah, I do remember there being. I do remember thinking that, and this might just be football fans in general, but remember thinking, wow, OU Twitter is the epitome of this game is over and we're going to win it after 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes later, oh, we're losing this game.
Yeah.
I don't like this at all. I'm like, you're still up 10 points. No, I don't like this. I don't like this. And what I remember in that second half, and maybe it was from a different game, but I'm almost certain it was from that one, is yeah, the passing yards tailed off for Rattler, but that's because nobody could stop Ramondre. And Ramondre Stevenson just had that weird, like, bizarre career where it was, again, kind of like Ronnie Perkins. You don't see him for the first half of the season because of that suspension. And it was like I don't want to play what if games, because you play with who you got and you play who you're supposed to play. But my gosh, if he and Ronnie are allowed to play in that first half of the season, who knows what happens for Oklahoma. But I mean, he's a guy who that's interesting you bring up the special teams thing, because I think he's just I don't know, at 6', 230. That's I think he would need to. Are you talking as like a punt returner, or as like a kick returner?
No.
Oh, okay.
As a coverage guy.
Oh, gotcha. I see.
Coverage guy, sort of a Matthew Slater type.
I see. Patriots. Gotcha. Yeah.
Not a return man. No.
I was going to say
the other side where he's just wrecking people.
I can see that. Yeah. I mean, the guy obviously loves contact, and I speaking of special teams, I can see Chuba as somebody who maybe has a weird. I won't put him in the Dante Hall category at all, but like as somebody who, you got great, just pure speed and pure athleticism. You got to get the ball in his hands somehow, I think, or at least if you're going to draft him, you got to make use of that somehow. Similar to Tevin Jenkins, Rodarius Williams is a guy who a couple of years ago, when people started talking about him as a pro, I was like, what? It seemed like the one thing he had going for him was nobody wanted to throw to AJ Green, and the fact that Greedy Williams was related to him. And which I didn't even know until this year. And then once everybody found out, it was kind of like hey, did you know Marcus Smart and Phil Forte went to school and lived together? Like, yeah, no, we know. But Rodarius Williams, I think, will be a decent enough, third corner, or I don't think he's necessarily a nickel, but he is because I think he's got good enough coverage, and kind of like AJ last year, he's got a little dog in him, in that he'll. I know everybody likes to, bug out over Big 12 defenses. He's a guy who would actually play really good press coverage at times, and would actually get after the receivers at the line of scrimmage. And, you never know with NFL referees how closely they're going to call pass interference, but I think he could find a career for himself. And then Trey Brown is another guy that I have no idea what to expect.
I can tell you about Trey Brown. Penalties. Penalties. That's what to expect. 14 the last 2 years in college is just a monumental amount. Yeah. That's not going to go down in the pros, where they call it tighter.
Yeah. I think the only reason why I say I don't know what to expect is it seemed like, whether it was against, and you saw it all the time, the guy, if this were basketball, he was the guy, or if this is baseball, he was like the quintessential pinch hitter that like drives in the wing run. Like, he always got clutch interceptions. He was the guy that did nothing all day, would get called for all these penalties, almost cost you the game, and then is like the, supposed
it all gets washed away at the end.
Yeah. It's like,
I know it's my fault we gave up 21 points, but I sealed the game.
Yeah. Look at this. Yeah. It's like, burn down the whole house, but you dug a garden. Like, it's like, that's a saying, right? It is now. And I think he's, I don't know if teams are really going to be too inclined to draft somebody like that. But is there anybody else that I mentioned that you really have an affinity for? I loved watching Amen Abba-Bamiga play. I loved the fact that it took me a year to learn how to pronounce his last name. And I'm not even going to try. I love that he was a ball hawking linebacker. I just don't know if he's got the athleticism to play linebacker the next level.
Yeah. Well, he's a good run defender.
Yeah,
he doesn't shed, but he just doesn't shed blocks very well. I think he's just sort of a backup that's not going to hurt you for sure.
Yeah.
I did want to say about Chuba. He's a guy who can really excel in a zone scheme.
Oh, absolutely.
If you want him to go north and south, you've got a problem. Like right off the bat, you've got an issue. Like you don't want to run him, just over the A gap. But if he can get, if you have a zone scheme, he can really excel because he does in a sort of, and he's not this good, but in a sort of prime Le'Veon Bell, he would always, kind of wait in the backfield and set up blocks and cut through there. That's where Chuba can excel. I don't, he can certainly be a productive member of a running back by committee as the NFL continues to transition to that instead of just having a guy they're going to give the ball to 270 times. If you're not Derrick Henry, you're essentially in a committee at this point.
And yeah, and I mean, shoot, Tony Pollard wasn't even the best running back at his college, and he's the backup for the Cowboys. So I mean, you can make a career.
And also, I'd rather have him than just be paying Zeke Elliott all this money.
Again, another story for another podcast, or off the record. Yeah, we could just turn the mics off. No, it's gonna be really interesting to see what happens with the draft next week. That's on Thursday.
Can't wait. I know we just talked about these Oklahoma guys, but what happens starting with pick 3 is going to be a crazy thing. And what happens after that? I mean, with the Falcons essentially have the first pick in the draft because we know 3 quarterbacks are coming off first. Who is the third quarterback? It would be so hilarious if it's Mac Jones. I can't believe that's going to happen, but it's just going to be so interesting to see what happens after the first 2 picks.
I'm starting to think, I mean, draft season equals smokescreen season. And I do think that maybe some of that Mac Jones stuff was smokescreen.
Vegas is back to Justin Fields is going to be the number 3 pick.
I saw that. I want to say,
but it's close. It's essentially a toss up. But that's where they are. It's Justin Fields is minus 105 and Mac Jones is plus 105.
I just think if you trade that much high draft capital,
you get Mac Jones.
Trade for somebody that you are convinced is a huge difference maker and who is a spectacular player. And I think it might have been Bucky Brooks was talking about this. He said, I just don't think you trade that many first round picks to go get Mac Jones. And nothing against Mac.
Bizarre, man.
Mac somehow went from underrated in my mind to really overrated in my mind. Yeah, because
I'm going to be number 28. Oh no, you're not going to be number 3.
If you get him in the 20s, I think that's fine value for a quarterback. You can get him in the top 5. I don't know what I think anymore. And
it's so bizarre.
And people are like, well, he put up better stats than Tua. Well, you know what? People are also thinking Miami needs to move on from Tua after 1 year, which is preposterous. I think give the guy a little more time, a little more help. Because I was a huge Tua fan. And
me too. I love Tua.
I mean, now I forget. Are you a member of Lefty Nation as well, or no?
I am not.
Okay.
I am not. I can use my left hand to do more stuff than my other right-handed brethren can do. Like I can throw a baseball pretty well left-handed.
Oh, I can't with my right. I grew up playing sports with my left. I can throw an okay spiral with a football with my right hand, but that's about it. And and I write with my right hand because I'm weird. But it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in the draft. I think that so many things that could happen, and my only regret is that I'm gonna have to be working that night because I would love to just do a live stream. I've never streamed anything on Twitch. I have a Twitch account. I've never done anything. I would love to just sit there, drink a beverage of choice, and perhaps with you, and just because I know your reactions to that sort of stuff are priceless. Because I love seeing your tweets anytime something happens in sports, and especially when people get things wrong, you are not afraid to tell them that they're wrong. And I love that. And I can't wait, man. I can't wait.
I wanted to say something about your defensive Mel Kiper, and my reply was just going to be, he liked Trubisky the most that year.
I forgot that was
the guy also my reply.
Doug, I forgot so many of his misses it's okay to be wrong on players.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay to be wrong on players, but don't die on this hill. If Jimmy Clausen isn't the next Joe Montana, I'm quitting my job, and then you don't quit your job. Yeah. No, sir, that is not how promises work.
Yeah.
And look, I mean, and I posted on Facebook, which I noticed you did not comment, sir, that I said, for people, who have are humble enough to admit when they're wrong. I'm like, dude, I was wrong on so many drafts. And, I had people come in and say, I mean, people maybe a little bit older than us, because I don't think I was even into the draft at this point. I mean, my dad even said, "Oh, I thought Ryan Leaf was going to be great. I really thought Ryan Leaf had it." I go, well, that sucks. He didn't.
Definitely did not have it.
I still don't know what I don't know why I still don't know what I saw in Blaine Gabbert. I watched his tape at Missouri again and again. I'm like, he was mediocre then. What did I see? Yeah, it's going to be really interesting. I think you've got some very good.
Undoubtedly, the 5 guys who did a sort of deep dive here.
Yeah.
One of them at least is not going to make it.
Is going to bust. Yeah. And I will reserve who I think that could be. I have at least one in mind that I'm like, there's one or two that and again, it's hard to call anybody that gets drafted in the second round a true bust, because obviously if they thought you were going to be, I mean, I don't know.
It's very possible. I'm just so wrong about Zaven Collins, but the dude did everything at Tulsa.
And I'm a big advocate for production. Especially when you get to, I mean, I watch the NBA draft every year. I'm like, yeah, this guy only averaged 8 points, but look how long he is. I'm like, yeah, but Andre Blatch though, like, you know, like I'm still waiting for Andre Blatch to really take off.
Well, that's the other thing.
It still hasn't happened. And,
the biggest difference between football and basketball in that respect is the coaching in football going from college to the NFL.
I think it's way different.
So much better.
Yes,
I think just way better.
Yeah.
If you're putting up 6 points a game on the hardwood in college, like, unless you're just swatting everything and nobody can make a shot at the rim against you, like, what are we even doing taking this guy? It makes no sense. It's so weird. It's like, oh yeah, but he's 6'8" with 7'3" wingspan. Great. Did he guard well in college? Like, what are we doing?
Right. Now, I will say one that I kind of got wrong. I don't want to say got wrong, but again, was definitely a potential pick. As somebody who grew up, and you never let me live this down. As somebody who grew up in a Texas A&M family, you know, I remember watching that 08 team. And DeAndre Jordan was fine. He had a couple of really nice dunks. I was like, if this was the number 1 center prospect in America, shouldn't he be starting? Shouldn't he be like playing more? Shouldn't he be like, you know, he would come in, have some really nice plays, and then have just like an IQ of -10 play. And you're just like, why? Ends up being a really good, borderline
still in the league,
NBA center for a while. And it helps when you have one of the best point guards of all time.
He made an all-NBA team.
Yeah.
And the first team all-NBA guy once.
And look, I think he's going to get so much, you know, I think his legacy is going to be so much of catching lobs from Chris Paul, that he was a lot more than that at times, man.
He has one of my favorite dunks ever, just killing Brandon Knight.
Still one of my favorite quotes was I was in a sports writing class at that time. And yeah, that was guys showing each other that, like, before class on YouTube, talking about it. I think some girl in our class was like, you know, it's like, what are you guys talking about? And they're like, Brandon Knight. And they were like, or the Brandon Knight, DeAndre Jordan. And she was like, what happened? And somebody turns around and goes, he ate a man's soul. That's what happened. He ate a man's soul.
He ended that dude's life.
He ended that man's career. And we've never heard from him since. Well, Kyle, hope to talk to you again, man. Love doing
anytime,
this,
man.
Thank you so much. Love catching up with you, my dude.
For
Say
sure.
hi to Reggie and Reese for me. I almost forgot the other one's name. Doggone it. But yeah, we will have to do this again sometime, man. Really enjoyed it.
Sounds good. Just let me know.
All right. Thanks.
Yep. See ya.
Stop recording.
Audio Jungle.